Welcome back to the Capes and Tights podcast. I'm Justin, and that's Adam over there. We're back for another episode. Welcome back, Adam.
Good to be back.
And congratulations.
It feels like
congratulations.
It's been a while. Thank you.
I'm just going to say right now.
Yeah, I got a new job working in archaeology. So,
but it has been a while. You're right.
But it has been a while. But it feels probably because it's been so busy lately.
It really hasn't though. We've only two podcasts ago. We were together. We had a fill in, not film. We had a guest. We had Jonathan Hedrick, who wrote The Recount, which is funny because I was going to go the Recount and point to it behind me, and I realized that I only put the comic book up there because he was on the podcast. Yep, and so I removed it and put it back into a Spider-Gwen comic book. So yes, check that out. It's on our channel, and check out capesandtights.com because that's where everything is. Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. But we're here today to talk Miss Marvel, which just finished up last week or this past Wednesday on Disney Plus. So I tell you, Taylor was really into this one. So it was like, there's a couple of these shows that we've done, or like whether it be Star Wars related or these Disney Plus shows that I've like watched the first episode on premiere night, and then maybe episode 2 on the second night, and then the rest of it like the week prior to us recording. Sure. And it's just because life gets in the way and all that stuff too. But this one, I feel like Taylor and I at least watched it Wednesday or Thursday night for each episode. And maybe it's the 6 episode thing, Adam. I don't know. Maybe when it's 10, 15 episode seasons, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much. Yep. But a 6 episode season, you're like, okay, I can do that. We can do that for 6 weeks. It's no problem.
That does seem to be like Disney's sweet spot right now, is getting into that, which I agree with you, because beyond that, I'll just watch 3 episodes as one. Yes. And, on one night. So yeah, but I think it's funny. I guess maybe we say this every time, but Annie liked this one too.
Yeah.
And was kind of like, oh, a Marvel show. Oh, so we had that same experience.
I mean, so you have a female lead role, which is good. You don't have many of those. And if you think about in comic books, and seeing this was really good. Seeing that it was the only Disney Plus show ever to be PG. So TV PG. So none of the other ones have ever been that like low of rating. They're all usually PG-13 or like the higher, whatever the rating above that for TV is. I don't remember what it is. So that gives it the ability to actually be more wholesome. There's a lot less blood and stuff like that in it. So it does become that sometimes Taylor before bed doesn't want to watch like something extremely gory or a lot of action packed. So this helped with that too. And that's, I think it gained a lot of attention for a bunch of people because of that sense of being less shoot 'em up style kind of thing.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it just kind of had like that young adult fiction vibe to it, which anymore, like as we all know, like with Harry Potter, everybody loves. So yeah, but it's funny. Annie even kind of noticed that I don't know, this focuses more on characters and families and stories than any real like hyper violence or fights and even the fights are fun. So it still is like kid friendly.
It's fun. I don't want to compare the Miss Marvel TV show to any Kevin Smith movie.
No,
but he has a statement in his where he has a lot of like us talking back and forth. There's a lot of just scenes of people talking. And for some reason it works in some of his films. You just sit there and you're riveted, like on Clerks when the two people are talking behind the counter about the Star Wars thing. And you just listen to them talking. You're like, oh, this is actually like 15 minutes go by. You're like, oh my God, I just watched someone in 15 minutes talk on a movie. This whole family oriented thing where they just talked and hung out and did things at the mosque and all that stuff. A lot of that was good because it felt like, okay, you don't need action packed all the time. It was character development. Right. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I did too. And I mean, this isn't the first show, but Disney's getting really good at having a cultural setting without doing that thing of like, hey, look, like, I mean, the whole thing felt to me like you're just there with what would be families doing their thing. It's not meant to be some like big showcase of one culture or another culture. It's just kind of New York life, New Jersey life in this case. But
and it's not the only, there's some comparisons between the way that the Miss Marvel, this at least in Disney Plus coming of age thing is the same thing as Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man in some of these things where like he's like in school and having to deal with friends and family and all that stuff. And in the Spider-Man one, so too, same thing. Like he's swinging through the city and he's grabbing a hot dog or a slice of pizza. Because he's in New York City and that's what they're known for. And so the same thing here where it's like she would obviously be around Pakistani people and going to a Pakistani church because that's what her life is and that's who she is. So if you didn't put her into that thing, it would have been almost more obvious that you didn't do that than what they did.
Exactly. And I guess what I feel like we see so often is like hey, look at this movie. Like the lead character is Pakistani. They're going to a college in New England, so nobody else is Pakistani.
Yeah. Yes.
So like, I feel like Disney's really doing the, like, we're just going to quit changing how things really are and just focus on people and their family. And it stood out to me more in this one than any show they'd made previously, that Disney's actually doing something really neat, I think, with diversity and culture
and on top of that too, family. I mean, I felt more for Kamala Khan and her mom caring and mom and dad caring so much about it. Like in Peter Parker's aspect of this in Spider-Man, him not wanting people to know he's Spider-Man and not having Aunt May know and all that stuff is I almost felt like Aunt May just like let him live his life. Like it was like he was an adult living in a house and going to high school.
Sure.
Whereas you felt like your family cared for her and honestly didn't let her go to Avengers Con and all that stuff because they didn't want her to get in trouble and it's bad people out there and so on. So they actually felt like their parents cared more than like anybody else's families cared so far in the comic books. So, and any of these TV shows. But before we get further into this, let's just go over. Okay, so there's some big things here in the comic book world, both in the show that was crazy and then before the show because of introducing Miss Marvel. So the series follows Kamala Khan, who's a 16-year-old Pakistani fangirl of the Avengers, particularly Captain Marvel, who struggles to fit in until she gains her powers. This is the first time in Disney Plus that there's not a returning character in the show or a A-list actor like as in Moon Knight. So like there's nobody huge in this show and no one from previous Marvel properties that have been in the MCU, which is pretty cool. It's actually her name's Iman Vellani is her name, who plays Kamala Khan. It's her first professional acting gig, Adam.
She is outstanding.
She's never been in it. You go to her IMDb page, it says Miss Marvel. That's it.
That's what I told again when we were watching it. I was like, man, it's amazing how much of this show would have fallen apart without that strong of a lead. And like you said, to not pick like a known quantity, strong young lead. I like honestly feel like she's probably going to have a huge career now, no matter what she keeps going with.
It's funny too, because you could have put someone else's face. You could have pulled someone from Stranger Things or someone from Ghostbusters, you know, like Afterlife and put them in there and sold the show. But I feel like Disney, this is a stepping stone to the Marvels movie. And so to them, I felt like they really wanted to put a good product out, but in the same sense, they felt like this is just an introduction to the character. Let's move on. So they really didn't need to put a ton of money and effort into it, which was fine. I don't think they overdid it or underdid it at all. It was perfect in that sense. But in the comics, this is what I was getting into. So in the comics, Miss Marvel develops her superpowers when the Terrigen Mists are released as part of the Infinity storyline, right? Yep. Her dormant inhuman abilities are activated by the mists. And on a rare night when she was out partying for Kamala Khan, it was like more of a rebellious time for her. And she got this Terrigen Mist. It unlocked her Inhuman's abilities and gave her the abilities she has with stretching and all this stuff. Kind of like, it's hard to say, but it's kind of like Mr. Fantastic in a sense. But she, in the comic book, she's Inhuman. Okay. Which we didn't know going into the show whether or not she would, what she was going to be. I didn't think they were going to do what they did at the end. So what I'm going to say right now is quickly, we're doing a review here of Miss Marvel's TV show. So there's spoilers alert. Alert. Now, we're making her a mutant. I did not see that coming. Not at all. Like as well as we should have maybe seen it, but I didn't see that coming at all. But we know that Kevin Feige is really against the Inhumans thing because of a failed TV show on ABC, and they canceled an Inhumans movie that was in development right before they purchased Fox. Yes. So if anybody doesn't know, in the comic books, Inhumans and Marvel's mutants are very, very, very similar. They have unlocked genes by something, and they have superhuman abilities, this specific group of people. There's obviously more to it, but they're so similar that I can understand them wanting to only go one route. Like
absolutely.
Going the Inhuman route. I think before the Fox merger, they were going to go the Inhuman routes because they didn't have the rights to mutants. So they were going to do everything. They may have introduced a character like Wolverine, but as an Inhuman.
Exactly.
So there's that. So there's no Inhuman. So obviously your story's going to change a little bit on that. They also decided not to make her powers like the comic book. So her cosmic energy powers that she has in this show is not what she is in the comic books. She gains her powers to harness a cosmic energy and creates hard light that constructs from a magical bangle in the show, as you saw it, Adam. However, the powers looked a lot like Like if you just took her powers from the comic
Yeah.
book and put crystal hard light over them.
Exactly.
So in me, I feel like they did it right. I feel like they changed it, but they did it right. And
yeah,
so,
it's almost, yeah, it's like a video game, like without the skin on the character. I feel like, yeah, exactly. If you just like skinned out what they were doing with the light, so I told Annie, it's like a super Mr. Fantastic, like you said.
Yes.
Mr. Fantastic Plus.
And so I feel like they would be, it's hard to say too jarring. Look at the characters we've gotten so far, Adam, like superhero characters. There's not a lot. I mean, Hulk gets big, right?
Yep.
But other than that, there's not a lot of characters that are like, oh my God, look what this person's doing. Kind of people. They're humans that are in special suits, or like aliens, but not. They don't look like aliens. So a lot of that. So it would have been very jarring, I think, to see her start stretching her arms.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
embiggening herself and stuff like that. So I'm glad they changed it. Not glad they changed it. I'm okay with they changed it. That's what I wanted to get across, is that I'm okay with they changed it, and I'm even more okay with the fact they made it so similar. Like they were able to make the look like it's from the comic books without making it exactly like the comic books. That I'm very, very happy about. And that's why I always say, don't judge the show before you see it.
Exactly.
Like, all these people were pissed off that we were changing her powers, and then if they watched it, they would have been like, oh, okay, it's not that much different.
No, and I imagine too, I always tell, like, watching movies why they would make the choice. It's probably a lot easier to do that with CGI too, than like morphing the body every time to make that look realistic. And like, it looked really good in Multiverse of Madness with Mr. Fantastic, but they probably spent so much on that scene.
Yeah, we had more money. It's a multi-million-dollar film.
Exactly.
So yeah, you're right. And so that I wanted to get across before you go to anything else is that I feel like it was a non-issue in a sense. But what I really wanted to ask you, Adam, is, so we'll get into the mutant stuff in a second, but we know that's there. That's on the table. They changed her powers, okay? And basically they changed her origin story in a sense for the movies. I'm a humongous Marvel fan and a big MCU fan. You're a fan of that stuff too, but like, you know that I'm more than you. And same thing with Star Wars. You're the Star Wars fan, and I'm the
exactly.
fan. Taking powers and people and characters directly and pulling them from the source material and putting them into the MCU. Are you personally okay with them changing things along the way, like taking source material and screwing with it to make the MCU?
I absolutely am. For me, like, I think too, that also sets a little boundary between like what is the movies and what is the comics. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you and I talk about pop culture all the time. You really, you have to kind of use the media that you're given. And I think with TV, it's like TV is not the same as drawing, and they have to make all kinds of and then actors have to be able to fit the roles. So like, I'd rather have a good story that doesn't match the source totally exactly than something perfect.
Exactly. And there's times where like things like people talk about, so Game of Thrones to TV, Lord of the Rings, there's all these books. We always see books. It's just more recently in 20 years that we've seen comic books go from the pages to the screen. It's a lot harder, I would think, because you visually see these characters on the page. So seeing them on TV, you're like, how does that go from that to that? So you kind of have to make their story the same, so you can make the difference between the way they look in the comic books versus the actor that's playing them. But you're right. I honestly personally think it would be somewhat boring if every single storyline and every single character was just taken off of the print page and put in motion in real life on the screen. Because wouldn't that just be a motion comic book of the person? I can just go home and read it on the comic book page. Like it needs to be new stories and new twists. And
and I think now, like you said, even 15 years ago in pop culture, people would have been like, I'm not sure about that. But this whole multiverse thing that like everybody plays with now, I think our brains that consume fiction now completely understand that, oh, this is just a different version. Right. Yeah. And I only mean that to say, I think that's a bigger deal than, like, as a kid, multiverse wasn't a thing that I conceived.
No.
Now everything it's kind of understood exists fictionally in that, that idea. So I think that's changed it a lot. I don't expect everything to be the same. People used to, I mean, like any comic book movie, immediately people would be like, that costume. I mean, remember when the first Batman costume came out on Michael Keaton, people lost their minds. We don't worry about stuff like that anymore.
And they're changing things that are so, they're big, but they're not. I mean, the first Captain America movie that came onto TV back in the 90s, he was a lawyer. and he wasn't a super, like it was like more of like a Batman or a Superman kind of story. So that is a drastic, humongous change to do.
Oh, yes.
Like she's still Pakistani. She still has a family. She still tells her family in the same way. She has very similar ways that she does the powers, big hands and beginning. She's not 100% human. Like if you just took Adam, this show, and said she has the exact same powers, and at the end you found out she was inhuman, the show would have been somewhat boring. Like there was a twist to it, because at the end we're like, oh my God. And seeing her new powers, what she do? She walks on those like pads that she makes out of the light. She can embiggen herself. Oh, she can use the big fist. So she can grab the car with the hand. Those things are things that I'm thinking like they're surprised me. So if you don't put surprises in these things, no one's going to want to watch them. I'm going to get bored. Why would I want to watch something I know exactly how the ending of the movie is?
No, and you mentioned the mutant thing, and one of the things I love about that too is, if you followed the comics, the cartoons, whatever, the mutants have always been this like huge stand-in for racism in the United, and xenophobia, and so I loved kind of like the first real mention of the word with some meat to it was Miss Marvel too. Like how great, because if you know that they've just kind of tapped back into a thing that already exists, which is the story of the mutant story always has been the story of being the other in our world. So right now it's an appropriate story.
I think the using, we can jump right into that. We'll go back and forth on some of these things. Like jumping some of the mutant stuff is that they did it on a TV show, Adam. So they used, so first of all, in an MCU movie. So now we have Thor Love and Thunder, I believe, was the 29th movie. And this is the 7th show. So 36 things have come out in the MCU since 2008. Which is insane to think about.
Crazy.
There's phase 4, if you added the TV shows and the movies together, are like far more already than like all of the other phases combined. It's crazy. What was I going with this? Oh, so they have all this time along and going on and stuff like that. I don't know where I was going with this. Now I'm trying to figure this out. Where I was going with this thought. It's so funny.
Well, see, we have been talking about how kind of
the fact that it's a TV show. So they've always talked about watching the shows. If someone's like, do I have to watch the shows to get the movies? And so far, you've been able to do both or either one. You so far have not missed a ton. There's some things that make the story better, but it's not like you couldn't go see Multiverse of Madness without. They give you enough nuggets in that movie to let you know somewhat about Wanda's background. They said the word mutation for the first time in those 36 movies or TV shows, mutation, or a version of the word mutant for the first time last week on the show, which is the reasoning is because of the Fox thing. The word mutant was in that contract. They said they weren't allowed to use the mutant in Marvel. And that's why Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch in the Avengers Age of Ultron were enhanced beings. It's because they were mutants in real life. And they're the two characters that were allowed to be in both universes according to the contract. But first time I've ever said it, and it was a version of the word mutation, so it wasn't actually a mutant, but the first time I said it. And they did it on a TV show, Adam. That's my point. Like the idea that they took a property that a lot of people were kind of like poo-pooing and like pushing off and said, no, screw you. You didn't want to watch this whole thing. You missed the season finale and saw that they said the word mutation in it. Now you have to go back and watch this and see this thing because it means so much for the next 36 movies. This one moment in this TV show, which is fascinating to me.
And it's so exciting too, because it's, just tying in with, like you said, like the way like the music changes and you get a little bit of that 90s X-Men theme. And of course we know we have like the rebooted X-Men animated coming, and I'm like, it's going to be like, what if they're going to set so much stuff up in that show? And like, I don't know. Sorry, I'm off topic now.
No, but so the idea about making her a mutant was a risk, was something that's they definitely, I guess they've already changed her powers in a way, so why not change your backstory completely? And the idea now we know kind of that basically the Inhumans are not going to exist at least anytime soon in the MCU, because they wouldn't make her a mutant and then 2 movies later introduce the Inhumans again. Like but the other part about changing that and introducing her as a mutant is she was only created, Adam, in 2013.
Right? I know.
You take Spider-Man and make him bitten by a bat instead. Like they changed a character that's been 9 years in the comic books. Like, come on, people. Like, it's again changing the color of Hulk, changing Iron. These characters that came out in the 60s and 70s, I understand they have 40, 50, 60 years of background. This person has 9 years
exactly.
of background.
And honestly, like you said, and stay focused. Like they kept the important parts.
Yes.
That is that she is a Pakistani American, that she's living, her high school life on her side of the river across from New York City. I mean, that is the important stuff they kept. The rest of it are just powers that we are allowed to change. Like,
and so I wrote a piece for our website, capesandtights.com, about how this is huge moving forward in the MCU, and I'm defending their decisions on making her a mutant and defending everything about it. And I wanted to pull up this really quick quote from Khan's, one of her co-creators. So she was created by like 6 people because the editor got credited on this one and so on and so forth. Check out online who those, I have them listed here, but I don't want to list them all off. Check out online who those creators are, because creators sometimes don't get the credit they deserve. Absolutely. And so they created this character, and check them out and read the series that she started in. But Khan's co-creator, Sana Amanat, I'm going to butcher that name, but recently said, here's a really important thing that people do not know. When we were thinking about the character of Kamala Khan back in the day, 2012, 2013, when G. Willow Wilson, co-creator, and myself were ideating, we originally wanted her to make her a mutant. The whole intention was to be able to do that. So the fact that she wanted her to be a mutant, obviously they're well okay with the fact that she's a mutant, because originally they wanted to make her a mutant. So it's not even pulling that far away from what it was created. So the mutant part of it is huge. I think making it a TV show where we made the first mutant come in here. And the other big thing, Adam, is they made a small 16-year-old girl, Pakistani girl, the first mutant to show up in an MCU movie. They did a toss-away character in a sense, and there's no offense to Miss Marvel or Aman Vellani, but they didn't take and all of a sudden out of nowhere be, here's Wolverine, or here's Professor X, or they took a character that really wasn't a mutant at all in the comic books, and a no-name actress, and made that person the first mutant. That is the perfect way to slowly bring in mutants to the MCU. Because if you came up with a bang and made a mutants movie, we'd want mutants in everything we move forward.
Oh, absolutely. And mutants,
they don't need to touch mutants now for 6 movies.
No, and they need to introduce mutants slowly. Like you said, that's such a huge part of the MCU. Like, you can't drop that all on at once. Like, man,
this is a possibility, Adam. In 2023, when the Marvels come out, they're not even touching on the fact that she's a mutant. That they just okay, that's there. Bruno found that. They're going to discover it later on, but they're not going to talk about that. They're going to talk about the connection between Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel, and that's what they're going to talk about. There's a possibility they touch on it, but I doubt it. And so mutants are here. And it came on a TV show, no-name actress that wasn't really a mutant, is perfect in my opinion. Like, absolutely perfect in my opinion. So I think that they have got nothing but good things coming forward with this, with the mutant part of it and so on. So I wanted some other good things that are going on. Oh, first of all, Matt Lintz. I met Matt Lintz, Bruno, at the Vanguard Comic and Toy Con back in April. Great dude. The funny thing is, when I met him, if anybody wants to say, I want to post a picture at some point. I posted on my personal Instagram. But when I met Matt, he had a cast on his right arm. Okay. He told us, I had an accident, whatever. He didn't tell us exactly how it happened, but it would have been back in April. So it wouldn't have been filming this show, but it was funny because he had a cast on the same arm in this show. And I'm like, trying to think about it. I'm like, wait, did he have the cast? He would not have had the cast, because this show obviously was filmed quite a bit ago. It had delayed release dates and stuff like that as well. But like, it's just kind of funny how I was like, oh my God, he had the picture I have with him is a picture that's at a Comic-Con, and he has a cast on his. It's almost like I brought a prop with me from the show. But he's a great dude. It was awesome to see that he was in this. He's also was on The Walking Dead for a little while there too. And so seeing him there, actually the guy that kills him, I believe, was in the booth next to him at The Walking Dead.
Okay, sure.
So they were in booths next to each other, and one killed the other. It was just funny kind of seeing that. But I don't know where I was going on. Oh, Matt Lintz is great. So it was great to see that. It was great to see that he's the one again that said the word mutation, some no-name person. So all of that I thought was great. And then obviously you add on top of that the 1990s X-Men animated song. It's not exactly played,
but
it's more of like a electric version of it, high-end, like almost like a high-end guitar.
Right.
And then on in Multiverse of Madness, they did it more like classical. And so I'm glad they didn't just take the song and put it in there, but it's like, hey, by the way, we mean mutation. We do mean mutant.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And that's what I loved is like, it's not this, like, that doesn't even necessarily have to be like an allusion to anything, right? It doesn't mean that like the 90s series is now canon and the reboot. It's just, it's just, that's what I loved in that moment. I was like, oh, this is mutants. Okay.
Well, that's the thing is because this conversation would have been completely different. I think if it would have been like there's a mutation, we're like, well, is it going to be a mutant?
Right.
Is it going to be inhuman? Is it going to be something else they're going to introduce? Is it going to be nothing? But because they played that song, it made it no question, in my opinion. Like there's no question this is going to be mutants in the future.
I thought that was one of the coolest like mega bomb drops ever in like the most subtle way you could do it.
It wasn't, I will give it credit because it wasn't a post-credit scene. It was right before the end of the show. Whereas that sometimes they drop these bombs in post-credit scenes and I'm like, why don't you put that in the movie?
Exactly.
Yeah. Makes no sense.
That shows you how important it was too. Like
it's just great. I thought it was a great way of doing it. I think again, the way they introduced mutants and everything was great. I will say episodes 1 and 2 were excellent. 6 was excellent. I thought 3 through 5 were questionable. They lost the track of the wholesome family element that we see at their house in New Jersey, and did the whole time travel and traveling overseas and all that stuff, which was good. It was necessary to see the end. But that was, like I said, I liked the whole wholesome in New Jersey, friendly neighborhood Kamala Khan part of it. Obviously they needed the 3 through 5 to set up what happens in 6. The clandestines, Adam, like obviously again, they needed to put something in there to get Kamran to be that place that the Department of Damage Control chases after. But again, I just thought they were wonky and weird, and I don't like, they didn't, I felt like it was a comic book character that they're like, oh, we could put this in here. And they just like shoved it in there. So other than that, it was, I thought 1 and 2 were excellent. 6 was excellent. And then 3 through 5 was like,
and another, like back to both of what you just said, mentioned damage control, but man, like talk about a timing with the mutant stuff coming into, you get that sense of like the Sentinels and
exactly.
Like a group that's their damage control, but they're going to morph into just basically being anti-mutant. Like, and I mean, that's no big secret if you've seen all the other stories. I just think, again, what a brilliant way to kind of start weaving that into the narrative. And
this is a comic book movie. So having a fake organization chasing them instead of the FBI or the CIA or the police, having this created shield type thing. And if there's shield, there's got to be something else. Do you know what I mean? There's not, they can't just be this one superhero powered police organization. They have to have something else like the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, you know, I feel like, so having Department of Damage Control is really cool. Seeing that, I don't know her name, but the actress who played that character who told everybody to come in, seeing her go off book a little bit and go crazy. Some people thought maybe she's a Skrull. But then maybe we just think she's just crazy and was in the moment and wanted to get Kamran and just said, screw it, let's just go after these high school kids at a high school and shoot them at a high school. Sounds like, with all these people watching, sounds like a great idea. So the other thing that we talked about location, Adam, is Pakistan, again, not featured in anything else but this. India, again, same thing. We talked about that in the Moon Knight thing, about great how they did it in another place. It's not always the same place. There were sister cities to where New York City is, but like having it be placed in she's from New Jersey in the comic book, so like that makes sense. But having it in New Jersey and not in downtown Manhattan was also awesome because it just brings another location in.
The scenes of her sitting on the Jersey side looking at New York, and I was like, that's so awesome, because that's that small thing we talk about where, like, you know, on the other side of the river, like the Hawkeye stuff was going on, and so that, just those are things that I've always liked, and I think that that's what brings some of these shows and movies that are currently in the phase to the point where, like, okay, you've done things in big places, big worldly things, and having these small community-based things that don't impact the greater. Like, we didn't have something to the point where you needed to hire or bring in Hulk and Iron Man and all these people. You could do this yourself. And I think that's great. Avengers Con was cool. That in the first episode, like having it be a Comic-Con thing. Yeah, that was super fun. That was awesome to see that and see her dress up like that's huge, Adam. She's a fangirl. Yep. Like, that's so cool to make that. Like, imagine if you and I are we're fan guys of like the Marvel thing, and all of a sudden I know where you got powers, you become a superhero.
Like that's really cool. It's like you're passionate about something, and then you actually get to do it is really cool, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it was. And I think again, what's neat is like it was done well. Like it's not like we came in hot being like, ugh, that opening scene with cosplay was dumb. Like it wasn't. It was just, it was done really well. It was like woven into the story in a way that made sense. And yeah.
And they could have gotten, they're based in New Jersey. They could have gone massive with this Comic-Con thing and like got the New York Comic-Con involved and had their branding on it and be like, okay, this is cool. She's going to this massive con. But they made it a local, like regional con that's like small and only a couple hundred people to a couple thousand people that are going. And so there was this thing that something happened big there. Not a ton of people would see it. Only the people there and a couple people with cameras could see what's going on. But yeah, so the location was great. I thought some of the episodes were great. Obviously, there's some bad moments, Adam, in these. So some corny, some cheesy things.
Sure.
A lot of people seem to know Kamala Khan is Miss Marvel now. Like
a lot of people
hiding it. Like her friends from school, all man, like they went to the school on a Saturday because there was no one there on a Saturday, and yet the girl that she saved at Avengers Con happened to be at the school on a Saturday and knew she was Kamala Khan was Miss Marvel or the light girl, whatever they called her in there.
Oh, but yeah, Nightlight.
Yes, Nightlight. There's like 6 or 7 people that all of a sudden know, and now her entire family knows. And it's like, okay, at some point, someone's gonna blab and say we know who Miss Marvel is.
Oh,
it's, Kamala Khan. But yeah, it's kind of funny. I was like, she's not keeping it very secret. Not that this mask is gonna hide much.
Right. And I guess that plays so well into this kind of, like we said, that neighborhood feel of like, I mean, Spider-Man wears a mask too, but sometimes you're like, there's no way people don't know who this kid is that's like jumping out of his apartment window. And also, while I'm on that, I loved that she has her favorite gyro restaurant.
Yes.
And I felt like that was such a fun callback to like Spider-Man always having his favorite sandwich shop. And
and we talk about race in it because you talk about Pakistani and you talk about this thing, but Peter Parker's a white dude. So like how many of those are in New York City? Sure. The idea that she's wearing this little tiny thing and she's Pakistani woman in New Jersey,
exactly.
and she's 16 and no one knows that that's her. But that's what we get past. That's why Clark Kent can wear just glasses and be not Superman, and that's what we get to pass in this world of comic books and fake and make believe. Is the fact that we have that. Speaking of disguises, Adam, did you notice in the final episode the at the mosque, what do you call him, the pastor, but whatever the lead religious figure,
the imam,
gave them when they were leaving 2 hats to wear. That was the disguise they wanted to wear, and it's a callback to how many times in the MCU that people have just worn hats as disguises and they've gotten away with stuff. It's like, this is not good, but then you put this on as not the person. Right. And I thought that was perfect. And obviously there was more meaning to the sayings that were on the hats, but I thought giving them hats and only hats made it kind of funny. And that was like a little callback to like how many times they've done that in the MCU of people just wearing hats as a disguise and no one's going to know who they are. That was awesome. I
also had a moment of talking about heads of the same thing we always talk about. Her crystals never cover her face.
Yes.
And I'm always like, it's just my general rule of like, in our fictional universe, you never protect your head. And that applies to Miss Marvel as well.
Yes. You have to be able to talk. You have to be able to speak. You have to be able to see. Where you've watched Station 11, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we read the book. We were behind. You mentioned it just to watch it a while back. We were behind. So we read the books. The book, I should say, to see what we wanted to read it first, and then and we're watching it. So we're now on episode 6, I believe, which is like there's 10, so we're like 60% through. Taylor goes, they're dealing with a flu pandemic and no one's wearing a mask. And I was just laughing because I'm like, because they're not doing it on the show because most of the show would just be
because they have to be able to be seen.
And so you have to see the people. So yes, they look stupid because they're gonna get sick because this is a crazy flu, but yet they're not wearing. It was this whole thing. I'm like, I think they had to do it. I mean, there's times you see them with masks on, but it was just like the main characters never wore them, even when they knew that there's a great possibility that they're going to get sick from the people around them. It was kind of funny to see that. But yeah, so this is the same thing. They always never protect their face, but you got to be able to see their faces and they got to talk.
Exactly.
So, you got to be able to see that. But yeah, as a whole, this episode or these shows were great. They were fun. They were wholesome. I think you could definitely tell episodes 1 and 6 were directed by the same person.
Absolutely.
The on-screen graphics, Adam, in the first episode were stellar. The idea when she was texting him and it was like showing up in the window of a place that says I'm open or whatever it would say, like something else. And those kind of things were really cool. And you saw that at the last episode when she did things where she was drawing out on the chalkboard about what they were going to do. their game plan, and then it would show that she would draw someone's face, and then it would go to that person's face and have their drawing. It was really cool to see that.
It was really cool.
And so they did that, like the first episode and the last episode. Wish they would have done it through. Like I felt like that the first episode nailed it so much.
That's that thing you and I always talk about of like, I get the reasoning, but it's always a gamble to have different people doing it, because in a 6-episode shot, it's noticeable. Over 20 episodes, I would have forgot who did what and whatever. But yeah, I know, I agree with you, because the way that they kind of, and the way that they used the art integrated into the show too, felt very like Spider-Man in the multiverse, which I thought was neat and kind of, so that would have been an excellent just kind of motif for the whole show.
To just continue that way through it, because it was so cool and so different, and you could do it in this show. I felt like it would be out of place in Hawkeye or in Loki or any of the other show, but I felt like the color scheme in this show and the immaturity of the fact that she's a 16-year-old high school student added to that point where she could go into a room and there's posters everywhere. Like you could add that element of kitschiness, I would say, to the fact that it's all these things drawn on the screen, and it wouldn't have taken away from the show. I think it still would.
No, not at all.
It didn't have to do it in every scene, but like every episode could have had a couple of scenes where it was like, okay, they're doing this texting back and forth, and it shows up on the wall as spray paint instead of
absolutely
a stupid text box of the iPhone messages going back and forth. So that was really cool. So I mean, as a whole, understanding why it was a TV show instead of a movie, I don't think it would have done as well in the movie theater. Unlike we thought with Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think Obi-Wan Kenobi would have been a multi-million-dollar, even not $1 billion movie. Whereas this probably would have been towards the bottom just because the character isn't built, and it's, again, a female character is not always sellable.
And not that old of a character. Like you said, that's the thing. I mean, in all of this, you got to remember, I mean, Star Wars, Marvel, you've got characters going back into the 70s easy. So
Adam, the other thing, so Kamala Khan's bangle lights up at the end of the post-credit scene. She crashes through the wall and she swaps places with Carol Danvers. And I will tell you right now, I don't know what the hell happened. Like I we have theories about time travel and warping. Honestly, I watched the scene again just quickly. I didn't watch the episode over again. I watched it once, but I watched the scene again. And part of me wants to say that Kamala Khan is in the body of Captain Marvel.
Oh yeah, that could be.
Partly. I said, I don't think that's the way it is. A part of me wants to think that, because when she gets this thing, she goes, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. And she goes to leave the room. And I'm like, but if Carol, there's a possibility there, but I do feel like they just traded places, and that's what's going to lead into the Marvels in July 28th to 23. And that they'll be in there together, and you'll see her in the actual movies. Another cool thing with her character going from the TV shows to a movie is going to be really cool to see that happen, and see Carol Danvers and Kamala Khan interact with each other. It's be really cool as well. But yeah, it was a weird thing. I don't know. It was crazy.
I mean, I had to look stuff up, honestly, because I was so kind of like, I have no idea what happened, and you probably know more, but I don't know. I've read the speculations of, the original pre-Carol Danvers Captain Marvel could come out of the negative zone through some kid. Like there could be a fun nod to that. I don't think they'll go that direction, but temporarily, if they could like swap each other's bodies, that would be pretty wild.
I mean, Adam, it's called the Marvels, so like you'd have to think. However, it was called the multiverse of madness, so we also thought there was way more madness in the multiverse.
No, it was the multiverse of like a few exciting things.
Yes. So I mean, the movie was good. If you haven't listened to our review, we did like the movie, but like we thought the idea that the madness would have happened with tons of multiverses being opened up and all that stuff, but it didn't. With this is the same thing. Where like the Marvels, I'm hoping there's more than just Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel. I hope there's like I said, like the original ones and stories and backlines. And so I don't know. Now what happens is that how they now get connected? Like now they swap bodies. So now they have to find ways back to each other. And obviously Carol Danvers being in New Jersey and likelihood that Kamala Khan is actually in space. Right? Exactly. Yeah. I'm guessing. And that Miss Marvel knows the United States. And so she can actually find, whereas Miss Marvel doesn't know.
Yep. Which would be funny each in their own respect. So I don't know, but yeah, it leaves a lot of possibility. I was like you. I was like, I don't know what just happened. It
was so crazy. That's not how I thought that was going to happen, like at all. No. Like it was just out of nowhere. I'm like, okay.
I was so surprised that Annie, like it ended, and Annie was like, that's the actual Captain Marvel, right? And I was like, yeah, well, maybe I missed the joke. Maybe it wasn't. And we rewound it. And Like,
well,
yeah.
it's also cool that she's badass. Like
Oh,
she
yeah.
looks grungy, like her
Yep.
her haircut and the way she looks. It doesn't look like neatly kept up
No.
Captain Marvel from the Avengers movies. It looks like she's like gone through some shit and she's like ready for whatever's next. And I thought that was pretty cool also to see that different style. And it's fun to know. We don't know it for sure, but like who directed that? Did the Marvel's director direct this shot? Because sometimes that happens in the MCU where the post-credit scene is directed by the movie it connects to. Sometimes it's directed by the person who did that show or movie. But a lot of times it's like, Taika Waititi did the post-credit scenes leading into Thor Ragnarok. And so those are the kind of things that you see sometimes. James Gunn did it, so on. So maybe the Marvel's person said, no, we want to do this as a post-credit scene because this is how it jump starts into the Marvels. I don't know. But yeah. The other thing, Adam,
it's fun.
Yes. The other thing, Adam, I wanted to quickly touch on was Young Avengers. I don't know if you know. I know you know comic books a little bit. This is more of a current thing. Again, same thing. The 2013-15 era of Young Avengers. I can actually tell you. So Young Avengers actually came in 2005, but still within the past 17 years, it's come into effect. The Young Avengers. I have it in front of me on the Wikipedia page. Because I wanted to see what the original cast or where the members were, and it's not exactly, but there are. So Kate Bishop, Hawkeye.
Yep.
Which is we just saw recently. Kid Loki, which was in the Loki show.
Sure.
America Chavez, Multiverse of Madness. And then you have, so if I were to say if they were to do one right now with the Young Avengers, you can almost see that they're building towards this. Young Loki, Hawkeye with Kate Bishop, America Chavez, Miss Marvel.
Yep.
And then they have a show coming out that's been announced called Ironheart.
Yep.
Okay, so there's that. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. That's a good team. Yep. Also, there's been talk about Nova. Like there's a Nova project being worked on, and in Sam Alexander, the young Nova, is also at one point part of the Young Avengers. He's part of the group called Champions and so on. Yep. The reason I bring that up is I feel like they're going that way. It might be a little while, but I feel like there could be a Young Avengers show, kind of like they did the Defenders show on Netflix.
Right. Yep.
With them, and the idea that we might have this, like you talked about the race part that X-Men has. Sure. In the comic books, there's a whole outlawed storyline that deals with the champions or the young people that they outlaw superheroing by people under the age of 18.
Yep.
So they say you're too immature, you're too young, you have to be 18 to be a superhero. Like obviously you can't stop you from using your powers, but like you can't save people and put your life in a danger by doing this. So that would be a cool Disney Plus side thing to do. Young Avengers and then the outlawed thing, which would include those people who were all under the age of 18 or technically Hawkeye. I don't think Kate Bishop is, but like say 21.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost maybe. They're a little older, but that same kind of thing you have with like, Harry Potter of like, yes, they have powers. They use their powers, but they're not supposed to use them outside of the academy. Hogwarts, and of course, so yeah, I mean, that could totally work. I think that'd be
cool. And you don't have to make it, you could be a side bar to the main storyline. So if the main storyline, Secret Wars or whatever it may be, mutants, that this could be a sidebar. We're like, okay, we're going to do something that connects with the movies and the TV shows on Disney Plus. It's going to be one series called The Young Avengers. And it includes young Loki, Hawkeye, America Chavez, Ironheart, Miss Marvel, potentially Nova or whoever. But that'd be cool. I just see that drawing because you have a lot of the young stars.
Absolutely.
They also could just be getting young people. So they have them for 15 years. That also
could be. But it makes sense though. I mean, you can see how the people they've cast would really work well though. I mean, like Kate Bishop, Hawkeye would be great mixed in with, Miss Marvel and there's a lot of fun ways that I think that could be. And I mean, like you said, not just young characters, but they got to start getting a younger generation of viewers that aren't just getting their parents, which is what by this point, their grandparents and great-great-grandparents, same superheroes. So
it's insane.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And like I said, I love the fact that, Adam, we live in a spot where we have a show called Miss Marvel. Like it's now we're past the idea that we went through just Iron Man, Hulk, and Captain America and Thor, that we now have a show that is based on a character that was only made 9 years ago, who's a Pakistani 16-year-old girl. That's really cool in my opinion. I think it's awesome. I think it was great that it was PG and it was fun for the entire family. All of that stuff I think worked. I think the 6 episodes is great because it's like a longer movie. Like you wouldn't have been able to fit all this in. I feel like they would have not touched as much on the Pakistani family part of it if it was a movie. They had the ability to do a show or two about just that. And so that added a lot to it, in my opinion. So I think they nailed it. Again, there's some spots in the middle, but I feel like every Disney Plus show or even Star Wars, or all the Star Wars and Marvel shows. I think there's a couple episodes in the middle of these series that just kind of lack the first and the last episode.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And still, like you said, I think they're still important for that kind of background of going and like seeing Pakistan, seeing the partition. And so, yeah, I agree with you though. It lost some of that momentum. I understand 100% why they did it.
Yeah.
Because you're already making a big ask with this like new young female Pakistani characters. So they really need to flesh out her, I mean, who she is, you know, she has a story like everybody else. And no, I thought it was just really fun. I don't know if it's the best, my favorite of the Marvel stuff so far, but it's up there. I mean,
I think comicbook.com posted on their Twitter or Instagram that like, okay, now that Miss Marvel's completed, put your top 5 favorite Disney Plus Marvel shows in order. And a lot of people didn't have it included, but I thought to myself, I'm like, this is definitely like out of the 7 shows that we've gotten.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Like this has to be up there. Like, I'm sorry. It's just the way that it was done and the way that they finished it and started it. And I just felt like there's definitely some shows, like people kept putting the Falcon and the Winter Soldier way up there. And I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
That was like,
ooh, and I would
Captain America 3.2. Like it was the
right.
Or unique and
what
new.
You're looking for in a show. But like, honestly, I enjoyed this more than Loki.
Yes.
Because even, I mean, I loved Loki, but it's still, Loki is all, it's like, it was that like, oh, we're doing time travel and multiverses with the Infinity background again. This, like I said, it feels different, kind of like Hawkeye did, just because it's not connected to those events.
Yeah, exactly.
And that makes it fun. I mean, it's connected, it's in this, of course, but like it just feels more fun. And like I have to invest less of my like, ooh, is this going to be a major canon breaking story that's happening? And of course, what I love is that in the end, it was one of the biggest bombshells yet. But
yes, and it's insane. The internet honestly went crazy. It was amazing. Like there's no way. Like I talked to a coworker of mine, and they were like, I was like, I don't want to spoil it for you. I've seen it. He's like, it's on the internet. If you're on the internet, you've seen it. It's like that's one of the reasons why season finales sometimes I feel like now I have to watch on Wednesday because like if you don't, then you're spoiled. But the one thing I forgot to mention as we close up here, Adam, is how she got her name, Miss Marvel.
Yes,
I just listened to it literally on the way back from going somewhere this afternoon. Is I listened to the end or the discussion on our friends from work podcast.
Yeah, sure.
They loved it. Over the top, over the moon. Great heartfelt moment. Her dad sitting on the rooftop with her, giving her the thought. I thought it was kind of forced, in my opinion. I liked it, but I felt like they forced in. We've got to give her name, and we've got to give it a meaningful name, and how she got Miss Marvel. And I just felt like. So I don't know. I felt like it was forced. So I looked up online, Adam. Kamala actually does mean perfection. It's beauty, excellence, completion at most level. So if you put in the word Marvel, it does fit in that category. It's not like you could add that to the definitions and it wouldn't be out of the world. But I felt like he went, it means perfection. And that's what he meant. And he goes, in Marvel. So instead of calling her Miss Perfection, he called her Miss Marvel.
No, I agree. I thought I did think it this like you did, where I was like, wait, I think you're making up translations now, like, which is like, it's a thing. I thought the scene was neat in its spirit, but I do. Yeah. The first thing I did was grab my phone and be like, that better translate to Marvel. And
so like, if you looked up any of those, like I said, it does fit in that. If you added that to it, it wouldn't throw me off. However, it just felt like they forced it in there. However, I did like the moment, like the dad sitting up there and him knowing and talking and saying, it's pretty crazy, and that you're doing this. It was like a moment where they gave her the Miss Marvel, and she got all excited because her name means the same thing as Captain Marvel's name, and so she's like, "Oh my God, Carol Danvers!" And he goes, "I don't know who that is, but
yes,
but like that was a cool moment." But again, I felt like it was like, okay, we need to figure out how to do this. And whereas like Daredevil on the TV show, he didn't have a name the entire time, but they started calling him that, I believe, in the papers or something along those lines, and he grabbed it from there. So.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering too if in the movies they're fully aware that, I mean, if we're just honest about viewership, a lot of people are going to be completely thrown off by there being a Captain Marvel and a Miss Marvel. Yeah. And so they probably couldn't think of any good way to not make that confusing either. Because I kept thinking like, oh man, if this was like my mom and dad watching this, they would be like, so wait, there's a Miss Marvel and a Captain Marvel, and who's the shiny one? Yeah, in
a universe called Marvel. That's
called Marvel. Yeah,
so original.
And they're going to be on a team called the Marvels. Like, okay.
But it's the idea behind Inhumans and Mutants. I felt to myself, they just went back to the well and just tweaked some things and was like, okay, here you go.
That is, I know that is one of my favorites with the Inhumans. I'm always like, are they really not just mutants?
Yes. Like
really.
So this Mist picked these people and did all this. Okay. Yeah. So, which is cool. So I'm okay with the mutants part and not having Inhumans part.
I 100% agree. 100%.
So a huge show, if you think about it, just released on that last episode about how she got her name and she is now has been revealed to her. So only people that know this is Bruno and Kamala Khan.
That's it. Yep.
The one line.
Love it.
Sorry, I wanted to closing up here. The one line that I picked up on is a continuation of the line that I read about, or I didn't know if I read it, but he says it's like a mutation. Oh, here it is. I actually have it right there. Whatever it is. Wow. I copied this from somewhere else and it's not correct. It's just going to be another label is what you said.
Yes. Yep.
And so to me, that puts into the category of labels and the race part of it. So it did show they're leaning towards or like foreshadowing at that race is going to be a part of something, a label for someone to call someone. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that progresses. But tell you what, man, maybe we'll know more on Comic-Con.
We might,
is coming up this weekend. And so we'll see. They have panels going on at that thing, and maybe they'll drop some information. Maybe we'll have a Fantastic Four cast reveal. Maybe it'll be other people.
What's the X-Men 90s series going to play into this? I mean, I don't know. Like it continues to be exciting.
Yes, exactly. So, and again, Adam, we got to see this on our couches.
Yeah.
It is amazing. I love that fact. Yep. The fact that it's on Disney Plus is amazing. So the next MCU Disney Plus show is She-Hulk Attorneys at Law.
Yep.
That is in August 17th, but there's August 10th is I Am Groot, which is about 5 shorts that are based on Baby Groot or Ground Groot. That's animation, and Vin Diesel did come back to do the voice of Groot.
That's excellent.
So it's on that too. So that's out before that. And then we got Andor this summer coming out on Disney Plus on that. And then there's at some point before the end of the year, we're gonna get Secret Wars.
I know.
Bad Batch season 2 for Star Wars. At the beginning of next year is Mandalorian season 3. So a lot of stuff coming out. So if you don't have a Disney Plus subscription, we don't make any money off of telling you this, but get one. Tell you right now,
for sure. If you have a friend that has one, borrow it for a little while and check it out.
Because it's well worth it. Then so that's all I can say, honestly. I don't know if they have anything more to talk about.
No, I mean, we kind of brought it back full circle here with we like what they did with Miss Marvel. We like the changes in the source stories. So I think it's exciting. I love how all of these little things tie into like the huge stuff that's going on. Yeah. It's super fun.
It's fun. And maybe we'll do it. I have some feelings on people's crap talking phase 4 that I'd love to either chat about, or I'll write a piece on the website for. It's just a little piece on it is I feel like they're setting up the next thing. So I feel like this is a stopgap that we got at the very beginning of Marvel, where they were connected, but they weren't. And they had, Thor, Iron Man, Hulk all stood alone. They had connections, but they all stood alone. So they have way more stuff coming out now.
Yep.
But I feel like there's movies, like they're even, Multiverse of Madness connected to things, but not really into other things and so on. So there's this trash talk about how we miss Marvel being all interconnected. And I feel like we're going to get that again.
We're going to.
I feel like phase 4 is that time for them to release Black Widow.
Infinity War and everything leading up to it was massive. I mean, like everybody's got to be a little story exhausted at that point. So I think that's probably, again, a smart move by Disney to be like, it'll come back. We're going to chill out for a while though, before like comics, you don't get giant crossover events every year, like the mega crossover events.
And here's the deal, people out there, if you read comic books, they reset shit all the time. At least they're not doing that. At least they're not like issue 1 comes out. I just got picked up this past week, issue 1 of Daredevil. Yeah. They had issue 1 12 issues ago. So it does that a lot. So at least you don't get that. At least now on Miss Marvel, a new Iron Man didn't come in there. And they're just like, well, guess what? We just have a new Iron Man. So get that out of there. But like, I think that the way they're doing it now is a little stopgap, get some fun things out there, some new shows, introduce some characters that are going to be big in phase 5. But phase 5 is the one where you're going to be like, holy crap, because they're going to do Fantastic Four and they're going to do all that crap too. So I feel like there's so much more coming. This is just calm down, people here. Anybody who thinks
Calm
that
down.
like,
I mean,
Thor getting a 60 something on Rotten Tomatoes is
Right.
bad. Like, come on, like we're moving on. We're
Yep.
gonna get some great things. I love the movie. We'll talk about it at some point when
Yeah.
it comes out on digital.
Yep.
But yeah, calm down, people. It's not the end of the world. First of all, it's freaking movies, but the people get villainized and evil on the internet
big time.
for freaking movies. It's make believe, dude. There's so much bigger things in the world to deal with.
So much bigger things. And also it's fun, man. That's, I know we come
Yes.
back to that all the time, but like, we shouldn't be pouring all of our collective efforts into making sure that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is 100% on point with canon. Like, let's just have fun.
Well, tell you what, Adam, I've watched 29 movies. You've watched 28 because you haven't seen Thor yet. And we watched 7 shows. So we've watched combined like all those shows. I have not once been like, I want my money back and I want my time back. That's all you ask for when you're being entertained by something. We get all this extra cool stuff when Marvel movies are rated. This is rated 98% on Rotten Tomatoes by critics.
I mean, I honestly believe it. I think it's some of the best writing that we've seen in a while, where like you actually had to think about your characters.
And you cared about the characters.
That's not a complaint. I don't always go into a Marvel movie wanting a big character exposition, but I think
it's great.
It's awesome.
Go see it. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, capesandtights.com. We got all kinds of cool new content on there. More coming, more fun stuff coming. We got interviews coming up here pretty soon too. Next week, I'm going to be joined by David Harper, who owns sketched.com, SKCTHD, and he owns the Off Panel podcast on Apple and Spotify. He's a big comic book person. He just had humongous guests on all the time. He just had James Tynion the fourth on. He had all these people on. So he's going to talk about the comic book world as a whole, retail, online subscription-based comics, print comics. So we're just going to talk comics and just get our comic book stuff out there. He's a way more smarter, as I say that completely wrong, than us on the comic book front. We like comic books. We read them. We
absolutely.
Read them. But let's go to the experts on things like that.
Always go to the experts when you can.
Yes. That's why we had Paul on every once in a while. So I'm not going to talk comic book retail unless Paul is there, because I don't know what the hell's going on there.
And full disclosure, I know nothing about comic book retail. I just read them.
Yes. So, Adam, your name means Marvel. So from now on, I'm going to call you Mr. Marvel.
Mr. Perfection.